The first thing we're going to talk about today is how to find the vertex of a parabola. So a parabola, if you'll remember from last class, is the U-shaped graph that looks something like this. Either opens up or it opens down. And there are different things that we can do with those parabolas. First, we can make it a really wide parabola. And we do that by making the number in front of x squared really small. Or we can make a really narrow parabola. And we do that by making the number in front of x squared really big. The other thing we can do with parabolas is we can shift them up or down. And the way we do that is we look at this number on the end, like this number here for this one says -8. That means the parabola would be shifted down 8. This one's +8. That means it'd be shifted up 8. This is +1. It'd be shifted up 1. So the next thing we're talking about is how to find the vertex. Well, our vertex is going to be this point down here at the bottom of the parabola if it opens up, or it's going to be the point at the top of the parabola here if it opens down. There's two things you need to know. First of all, in order to find the vertex, the first thing you need to know is you need to know that the standard form of a parabola is the equation y equals negative a, I'm sorry, not negative. It is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, that is just your generic form of a parabola, kind of like a line is mx plus b. This is what parabolas are. And to find the vertex, you need to know the formula negative b divided by 2a. Okay. So this formula, negative b over 2a, will allow us to find the vertex. And where we get this a and this b from is from this equation. So we said the standard form of a parabola was ax squared plus bx plus c. Well, because a is in front of x squared, that means that a for this problem is 3. And because b would be the number in front of x, it would be 4 in this problem. And c will be -8. So we can use these three numbers, well, really just two of them, to find the vertex. So the formula says negative b, which really means the opposite of b. So that would be -4 divided by 2 times a, and we know that a is 3. Well, 2 times 3 would be 6, so I'll have -4 over 6. Can't divide that, but I can reduce that to -2/3. So that would be my half of my vertex. Okay, this right here, this formula, only gives you the x value. But a vertex is a point. It's an x and it's a y. Well, we know the x value is -2/3, so to find the y, this is the easy part, it really is, to find the y, all I have to do is I need to take this number and plug it back in this equation. So I'm going to pull up a calculator, which you can see on the screen. And I'm going to go to my main screen, and I'm going to type in this equation, and instead of x, I'm going to type in -2/3. So I have 3 times -2/3 squared plus 4, plus 4 times 2/3, again replacing x with 2/3, minus 8. And it tells me that it's -4. So that would be the other half of my vertex, would be -4. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for each of these two equations. So the first thing I need to do every time is I need to identify what A, B, and C are. A in this problem is -2 because A is always attached to x squared. Now B, there's a little bit tricky because this one only has two numbers. So we have to decide which one do we have. Is 8B or is 8C? Well, if you'll notice that 8 is the number by itself, and if you look back to your original equation, C is the number by itself. So I know that C is 8. I don't have a B, there's no x term here, so we're going to say that B is 0. So I'm going to plug my numbers back in my formula, so that would be -0 divided by 2 times A is -2. So that would be 0 divided by -4. And 0 divided by -4 is still 0. So that means that I have found half of my vertex. I found the 0 part, the x part. So now I've got to find my y. I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to type in my original equation, -2, and instead of x, again, I'm going to type in 0. So -2 times 0 squared plus 8, and it gives me 8, so that tells me that the other half of my vertex, the y value, is positive 8. Okay, so now we're going to find our vertex for our third equation. Start off the same way. First thing we're going to do is we're going to identify A, B, and C. And A is always and will always be the number in front of x squared, which in this case is positive 4. B is a number in front of x, it's -2. C is a number by itself, which is 1. So when I get ready to plug it in my formula, remember it says -b. So there's a negative sign in the formula, and then there's b, which is in this case -2. And when we have a negative negative, that really is ultimately going to become a positive. So we'll fix that in a second. But we have -2 on top divided by 2 times a, which is positive 4. And remember, in your formula, there will always be a 2 on the bottom. Always be a 2 on the bottom. That's just part of the formula, because it's -b over 2 times a. So negative negative we said was positive 2. And then I have 2 times 4 on bottom, which is 8. I can't divide 2 by 8, but I can reduce that to positive 1/4. So that's half my vertex. That's the x value. Now I've got to find the y value. To do that, I'm going to plug it in my calculator. So I'm going to take the original equation, which is 4x squared, and instead of x, I'm going to type in 1/4 squared minus 2 times 1/4 plus 1. And it tells me it's 0.75, and you can either leave that as 0.75 or you can convert it into a decimal and you get positive, or I'm sorry, you can leave it as 0.75 or convert it into a fraction and you get positive 3/4. Okay, so that is how we find our vertex. Okay, the next thing we're going to find is our line of symmetry that goes through a parabola. So if you think about a parabola, if it's a really well-drawn one, unlike mine most of the times, they have a line that goes through the middle. It's kind of an invisible line that's called the line of symmetry. And a line of symmetry is a line that splits a graph in half so that the two sides are completely identical. So for this parabola over here to the right, your line of symmetry would look something like this. Maybe a little bit off, but if I could draw correctly, then you would be able to tell that a line of symmetry is a line that goes directly down the middle and splits the parabola in two equal parts. So to find the equation of the line of symmetry, it's really, really easy because we've actually already done all the work. Once you find your vertex, to find the line of symmetry, you only need one of these two numbers, and that's it. So since this line is a vertical line, that means the slope is undefined. It also means that our equation is going to be x equals a number. That's just how a vertical line is. That's always the equation of it. Well, what was our x value in this equation? It was -2/3. So our equation for our line of symmetry is x equals -2/3. For this one, we know our line of symmetry is going to be x equals, and then we've got to figure out which of these two is x. Well, that's 0. And then for the last one, our line of symmetry would be x equals 1/4. So we're really, truly are not adding any more work on there. All right, the last thing we're going to find about parabolas is their roots, solutions, zeros, or x-intercepts. These four words are synonyms, and all four of them are referring to the place on the graph, on the x-axis, I'm sorry, where a parabola crosses the x-axis. So if this was my parabola, what we are looking for would be this point or this point, either one of those. We can actually find them using the calculator. So you're going to go to y equals, and if you don't have a graphing calculator, then I can give you a website for one. I'll give you that in a second. So if we go to 3x squared, type in 3x squared plus 4x minus 8, and go look at our graph, what we're trying to figure out is where this graph crosses the x-axis. Well, You can tell it crosses right here, and you can tell it crosses right here. This one to me looks like it's at 1, so that's probably a safe bet that our first root is going to be at 1. I'll write that in here. So our first one's probably going to be at 1. And then our second one, however, we're not really sure what that is because it's not on a whole number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to this point and get where I think I'm on top of it. And I'm going to zoom in a couple times. So I'm going to go to zoom to enter once, twice, and then I want to zoom in a third time, 3 times. And I want to scoot over because I want to try and figure out what this point is. Well, now it's telling me it's negative 2.43. So that's going to be my second root, negative 2.43. I'm going to do the next one with a different graphing calculator. That way, in case you don't have one of the TIs at home, you have something to access. Okay, so our next problem, I'm going to do this graphing calculator. It's at dsmos.com /calculator. It's a pretty good online graphing calculator. I really like it. So our equation is 2x squared. Oops, sorry. For exponents, you have to use this button down here where it says AB squared plus 8. And so this is what our graph looks like. Well, we're again looking for our roots, which is where it crosses the x-axis on either side. And so you can zoom in. That's a good thing about this one. It's really easy. And you can actually click on it and it'll tell you what the roots are. It tells you it's negative 2, 0 and positive 2, 0. We're only concerned about the x values. So for this one, our roots are negative 2 and positive 2. Now we're going to do our last one, which said that it was 4x squared. And again, to do the squared, I need to press this AB button down here. Minus 2x plus 1. This is what my graph looks like. Well, I'm trying to figure out where this graph crosses the x-axis. And it never does. So that means that there are no roots. Okay? It's possible to not have that. It's possible to have one root, it's possible to have 2 roots, and it's possible to have no roots. In this case, there are none because it never crosses the x-axis. I'm going to change this problem a little bit so that it's something that does cross the x-axis because I want you to see that as soon as I did that, it told you right here what the 2 roots were. So they were negative 0.651 and 1.151, and this probably is going to be your best calculator to use online as far as what will help you with this. So that's the 3 things you have to do, and your online assignment is in a separate link. Have a good day.